Greater Memphis Media. TSD TV, Tri-State Defender.
You understand how important it is. You know, I watch a lot of stuff on Deion Sanders, and he's so motivating.
A complete and total failure of leadership from the federal government.
If anyone asks how it's going in the black community, you tell them we're rising.
Greater Memphis Media and TSD TV presents to you the Brian Clay Chronicles.
And we're back on the Brian Clay Chronicles, but this is our new segment, From the Bench, with Judge Tarik Sugarman. How you doing, brother?
Doing great, brother.
You're looking like $1 million.
I'm trying to follow you. The $2 million.
Maybe $2. My last $2. So what's going on, man? We have the confirmation going on with the Supreme Court.
That's correct.
That's correct. Which is interesting always. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you as a judge, and I don't know exactly how a juvenile court judge would handle this, or if it's something that you've thought about, but with the number of children that will be entering Memphis from Ukraine soon, they're already, some of them are here.
Yes.
Being serviced at St. Jude. But as a juvenile court clerk, not clerk, but judge, is there any role that you would play in assisting those children with resources or families with resources?
No, that would primarily be a county function. Mm-hmm. With the juvenile court system, we handle dependence and neglect, of course. It's too early to tell what the status is going to be of these kids in terms of family placements, whether they're going to be fostered. And to that extent, it would be left to the agencies. Mm. And the county and state would have to provide resources for these children, of course, when they arrive. Right. We'll be looking to the nonprofit community to help with any ancillary needs that the families may have to help the transition smooth into this community. But the juvenile court would not play any major role in that. Now, if it were situations such as, I don't anticipate this to be a problem, but delinquency issues, and there would be no child support issues, clearly, because the parents are not necessarily going to be here. They wouldn't be under our jurisdiction in terms of enforcement of any child support agreements that were or may have been pending in another jurisdiction in Ukraine. So there would be no role in terms of juvenile court in that regard.
The number of shootings, Judge, that are occurring in Memphis with children is just, I've never known, and we've been in Memphis for a long time, I've never known it to be this high. What are some of the things that you foresee pending your election regarding violence in young people?
Well, let's look
Or is that a loaded question?
No, it's not a loaded question. It's one that we have to address. And you probably heard some of the numbers. The demographics between 9 and 17 are the largest growing demographics of children committing suicides. Now, that is a byproduct of a emotional and mental health crisis that we're having. Juvenile court has a responsibility in terms of addressing a child's delinquent acts. There needs to be an assessment center. The county had appropriated funds approximately 2 years ago. It was a partnership, and I might have mentioned this before, with the University of Tennessee. Dr. Stewart was heading up the program. Memphis Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, and Juvenile Court. This was to feed information that's gathered objectively about a child in terms of their emotional development, their mental health issues, any emotional issues they may have, and make an assessment based upon the act that's committed by the child as a proper course of rehabilitation and restoration. Also requiring accountability for the child and the family to the extent that child's delinquent acts can be addressed through a restorative program, the parents also have some accountability in that to make sure they get the proper resource, and we have to make sure they're available to them.
Right.
And then report that information to the judge, which would be me at the time, and make sure that, the current administration talks about having a trauma-informed court. Well, what does that mean? You can't.
What does that mean?
You have to have a proper assessment. Now, currently they use a staff of in-house psychologists and psychiatrists. That is flawed. It's a flawed program to begin with because you're under the judge's administration. So, to the extent that those reports are objective, is questionable. Let me just give you a real quick, for instance, the transfer, and we've talked about this before, the transfer of children from juvenile court to adult court to be tried and sentenced as adults is astronomical for this county. Out of 95 counties, Shelby County transfers more children to adult court than all the other 94 combined.
You said that before. Nashville, though,
has done an excellent job under Judge Sheila Calloway. But one of the things that Sandra Simpkins, who was the DOJ monitor that was here in her last report, she identified 9 cases. And let me back up a little bit. In making the transfer, a judge is required to consider the social history, the mental health history, as well as other factors regarding the alleged delinquent act. Sandra Simpkins identified 9 cases where the children were transferred without the mental health component even being completed. That is a necessary component to determine what a child's responsibility and understanding of their acts are before you make the transfer. And this administration has not done that. So if you're not, first of all, getting an objective mental evaluation, or in that instance, not using the ones that you are getting, then that's a flawed ruling in transferring these children. That's something that has to change. There's a significant mental health issue with children going on that are growing up in communities that are really war zones.
I've always said, Judge Sugarman, that children growing up in those type of conditions is nothing more than, it turns into almost a public health problem.
It is.
What is your perspective on that?
Oh, absolutely. It is a public health problem. One of the things that I want the assessment center to be able to do, and in addition to the juvenile court partnering with our school systems, is they have counselors in the school. The judge has to be present in the school system. We have to have a relationship with the counselors, with the parent-teacher organizations. There is not a counselor or a parent in a district where you have a high incidence of crime, you have a high incidences of truancy, that judge should not be familiar with the school system and the personnel there, but also the parents should be familiar with that court.
So you don't plan on being a judge that's just perched at juvenile court?
Oh, no. You have to be proactive with this. And again, addressing the mental health issue, there are wraparound services partnering with the school system, University of Tennessee, to the extent that they are willing to still partner with us to have that assessment. And it's unfortunate that this judge has not weighed in to make sure that happened. Now, they're building a new detention center that's going to have more cells or more places to keep these kids, but nothing to deal with the rehabilitation and assessment for these kids.
And that is the biggest problem I have with the system, so to speak. We can build more jails, but we don't want to rectify the problem.
Right.
Can we take a quick break and then come back to right there?
Certainly. Certainly.
Because I want to really get into that. This is From the Bench with Judge Tarik Sugarman. Papa.
Family. Security. Happiness. They had it all. A good life. Then, one day, the unexpected happened. And just like that, everything changed. Things spiraled downhill quickly. Suddenly, their lives were falling apart. They were facing the unknown. I'm attorney Ursula Woods. Call us at the bankruptcy law firm before it's too late. We can help you get back on track and give you the second chance that you deserve.
Thank you for tuning in. I'm attorney Monica Johnson, and let's talk about securing your legacy with a power of attorney and an advanced health directive. A power of attorney grants a named individual the authority to act on your behalf with respect to whatever matters are designated in the document. A durable power of attorney comes into effect or continues when you become incapacitated and unable to handle matters on your own. Let's switch gears and discuss how to ensure your desires are met when the time comes. An advanced health directive is a legal document in which a person specifies what actions can be taken with respect to their health when they can no longer speak for themselves. For example, would you like the doctors to take extreme life-saving measures to ensure your survival? What if your survival would result in you being in a vegetative state? What if amputation is required? These are all decisions that can be made in advance of a medical procedure or an unfortunate accident. Let's be proactive. Call me today, attorney Monica Johnson, 901-325-0600, or visit me at attorneymonicajohnson.com.
Sugarman, we were talking about, I guess, in many ways, judicial reform and some of the things that are not happening now with Michael that you plan on doing once you're elected to the bench at juvenile court. They're building more jail cells, not providing more services. Let's pick up there and tell me what are some more of your, not only your plans, but things that we must do to get our children back in line.
Yeah, well, first, I'm not going to characterize them as jail cells, but the detention center, the current administration was making it's a beautiful place and it's comfortable and all these accommodations. Detention is trauma in and of itself.
Period.
It's period. It's trauma in and of itself. Now, there has to be accountability. There are some children, and I'll be the first to admit it, that have gotten so far down the line because they were not handled properly with their first contact either with the juvenile court system or when issues of truancy or disciplinary issues became apparent, either in school counselors or through the Memphis Police Department or Sheriff's Office. We have to focus on rehabilitation to the extent that we can catch a child early on in this process, get services to help the family, restore the family, and then before a child is just released willy-nilly, and I know Mayor Strickland had talked about this revolving door. I don't like to characterize that, but we do need to make sure there's accountability on children that are being released into the community willy-nilly without proper supervision. That's one of the things I want to make sure we do with the partnership with with Shelby, I'm so used to saying Memphis City, Shelby County Schools, is to build a relationship, a working relationship. For instance, if a counselor at a school has a problem with a child that is on their radar for having violent propensities or acting out.
And the schools would know that.
And they would know that. And that's why we need to have that pipeline of communication constantly. And they make a referral. Now, the child's not necessarily done anything that is considered a delinquent act, but then still may need to be an assessment in conjunction with and cooperation of with the family. Now, we don't want to start a criminal record, but what we can do is start a course of treatment that I believe would be protected under HIPAA laws, just as if a child had some physical ailment or emotional ailment or a physical, an injury or something. This would be a record, a medical record that is protected by HIPAA so that child is not then put into a penal structure, is put into a rehabilitative structure.
The day our son was diagnosed with cancer, we didn't know what to do.
You know, you have the really nice people and you have a really nice place, but then you have that one big struggle that you're going through. So.
The question we're always wondering about is, what if it comes back, or what if she has complications from her therapy as she gets older?
Should we really be considering this clinical trial? Is it really going to help him?
When the doctor was telling me I had cancer, I didn't know how to act in front of my mom. I didn't know how to handle this news.
When it comes to pediatric cancer, there are always more questions than answers. We can face pediatric cancer together.
Hi, Jim Downey. Hi, good to meet you. Hi, Jim. So Savannah, how old are you again?
I am 6.
6 years old. So
I
first,
have a wiggly tooth.
As a parent who has just been given the news that your child has cancer, we see the Together site as an important tool that will help you through the journey that you face. When you go home with that diagnosis of cancer, then you're facing the decisions that are going to alter your child's life and your life. Why can't there be a site, an authoritative site that gives you everything you need to make the right decisions?
from diagnosis to finishing treatment to the next steps to long-term follow-up, information for you, information for you, information for you.
Your questions go beyond treatments and trials. Together, we'll offer resources and support for your day-to-day life.
As the father of a pediatric cancer patient, I know that when you or someone you love is facing cancer, you find strength in information and hope. That's what this website, this resource, this community called Together is all about.
Now, how does the data go in identifying, like you just said, students that are on their way to the other side and being able to rehabilitate that child before they commit acts of criminality?
Well,
or is there data?
There are, and that's where you want to be careful. There are status offenses that are delinquent acts that do not rise to the level of being a quote-unquote criminal act, but nonetheless a status offense, and you want to make sure that the family is made aware of rehabilitative services that are available for their children, and that they get those proper services. And there's a follow-up between the court and the assessment center. But we have to be careful not to start these children on what is a criminal investigative track. That's, that then stigmatizes the child. It's another form of trauma. You have to look at this as a health service. And on those status types of offenses, delinquency, acting out, being a belligerent child. They used to have this docket that was special for a child that was considered a problem in the family. Okay, and those are the kind of things that we would need to have a mental or medical health record kept of.
When we do this again, can we talk about that more?
Certainly.
Because I think I love your ideas in regards to rehabilitation and focusing really working with the entire family versus just the child, and looking at it from a health perspective.
Okay. Can I give a little a tab? I want to for the next program. Let's explore the problems with the dependence and neglect docket.
Yes.
Because that is a significant point where if a parent has an issue in the household or the child is on dependence and neglect, it's taking too long for those cases to be processed and heard in Shelby County. And that is it's actually a denial of due process, another area where the court is failing to provide proper due process.
We have Judge Tarik Sugarman, and this is From the Bench with Tarik Sugarman. And this is the end of the Brian Clay Chronicles, this particular episode. And we look forward to seeing you next week on the Brian Clay Chronicles. And if anybody asks you about the black community, you tell them we're rising.